All right, so the Giants have some decisions to make. Mike Remmers, who started 14 games at tackle, Cody Core, a special teams ace, Buck Allen, a running back, Cody Latimer, a wide receiver and special teams guy. Offensive line is an area that obviously is a big concern for the Giants.
Yeah, the focus right here with Mike Remmers, obviously as a veteran player, he brought a lot of leadership to that group. I think there are a lot of really good tackles out there, so I'll be curious to see how the Giants view Mike Remmers. He did battle some injuries last year. I think he could end up being a valuable asset if they could find a way to bring him back, but the economical aspect of signing him will also depend on some other tackles that are out there in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that you have to figure out here is price point, right? What's the production based on what it's going to cost us? So we go to the defensive side of the ball, and unrestricted free agents for the Giants. You've got Leonard Williams, who they picked up in a trade. David Mayo was a heck of a find and did a really nice job. Marcus Golden led the team in sacks, and Michael Thomas playing on defense and special teams. But what about Leonard Williams specifically and Marcus Golden?
Yeah, Leonard Williams, obviously the big trade for the Jets. And immediately there wasn't an impact with the sacks, but you could see there he did get to the quarterback a lot, 19 quarterback hits. So the pressure was there. I thought he was very big in the run game, and I thought he did a great job stopping a lot of runs. He really created a lot of double teams, so allowed the linebackers to get free. So Leonard Williams, I think the whole thing is going to be price point with him, Bob. I don't know that he has earned a long-term deal. So for the Giants, they must be thinking, look, we want another short-term deal, prove-it year for him. And for Marcus Golden, I thought he did a great job last year under basically a one-year deal. He was coming off of injury, hadn't been healthy, and he showed that he could be a force off the edge. I think he could be a valuable pickup for the Giants, and I think they're going to look to try to keep him.
How much does the scheme factor into all this, and the fact that there's a new defensive coordinator now in Patrick Graham, and how these guys may or may not fit goes a long way in how you do the business of deciding whether to re-sign a guy.
Yeah, Bob, it's a great point. I think for Leonard Williams, the scheme aspect, I think he's better outside, and the more you move him inside, if you're running a 3-4 defense and you want to put him down a nose or inside defensive tackle, I think that's kind of where he is really going to struggle. And I think so for him, he might be hoping for more 4-down defensive schemes, and maybe he can get out on the perimeter and out on the edge. And certainly for Marcus Golden, he has really shown his value. He can rush as a 2-point stand-up or his hand down in the dirt. Obviously on third down, he's going to be rushing the quarterback. But for Marcus Golden, I don't know that he necessarily wants to be a guy you move inside and has to go against any guards or centers.
Your turn to move us forward.
All right, so who we got next here? All right, speaking of pass rushers on the market right now. There's not a whole lot of pass rushers out there. All right, you've got Jadeveon Clowney, who's a free agent right now. Yannick Ngakoue from Jacksonville. They have said that they are going to tag him when the league year does begin. He has actually voiced and said he doesn't want to play long-term for the Jaguars. So if you're the New York Giants, here's what I see on film, Bob. 91 reminds me a little bit of Justin Tuck with his hand swipe, with his movement. His get-off reminds me of Osi Umenyiora. And I think when you look at the fact that he's 25 years old, Bob, speed rushers like this who can convert that speed into power don't just grow on trees. So this will be an interesting opportunity for the Giants to try to pursue a guy with this talent.
What about Clowney as a guy that is going to be out there to be had as far as price point, production, health?
I think with Clowney, he's going to command such a high price point. And I think for the Giants, that's going to be interesting to see where that market goes. And, with this legal tampering period, that's where everybody's going to gauge the water. I think for Jadeveon Clowney, he might be one of the best run-stuffing pass rushers in free agency. And when you look at him, you're not just getting a guy that's going to show up on third down. Jadeveon Clowney on first and second down, he's a game wrecker. He's going to blow up your one-on-one tight end block. He's going to disrupt your run game. So he's definitely a force.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is just because you have a bunch of money under the salary cap doesn't mean you have to just spend it. You use it wisely, and mid-range free agents are guys that can always be of value, and that takes us to a guy like Kyle Van Noy, who is one of those guys that New England traded for him. He was underperforming in Detroit. You think about when the Giants signed one of your teammates, Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, good one.
That's like an under-the-radar, mid-range free agent that turns out to be a very valuable free agent.
Yeah, Kyle Van Noy, when you think about him, you think about versatility. And you mentioned his second-round pick for Detroit. Really kind of things didn't work out there. He goes to New England, and now they find a niche for him. And I think that his versatility is what would be really appealing if you're the Giants. Also, if you're Joe Judge, you know the guy. You just spent the last couple of years with him. Originally an off-the-ball linebacker, and then last year the Patriots put him on the ball and had him rushing the quarterback, and he really shined. I think one of the things that jumps out at you when you watch him on film, Bob, is his smarts. He's got great football intelligence. He's constantly timing up the snap. Sometimes the determining factor between getting home on a blitz and not getting home is, can you time up the snap count? And time again, he shows up shooting that A gap, shooting that B gap, or jumping the snap off the edge. He does a great job with that. I think also from a leadership standpoint, he kind of became one of those guys on that defense, and it was one of the best defenses in the league last year. So bringing a guy like that to the Giants would do twofold. Number one, on the field, you've got a great, versatile player who's going to keep everybody in check, and then in the locker room, you've got a great voice.
Yeah, and understanding the coach's message is very important. Linebacking help. The Giants need linebacking help. Let's talk about some of the linebackers and some of the ones that could be on the market, like a Cory Littleton.
Yeah, this is going to be a therapy session for Giants fans right now who are tired of seeing running backs run through the middle of our defense, tired of seeing tight ends run right down the seam and not have an answer for it. This could be your answer. Cory Littleton has been one of the best cover linebackers in the league the last couple of years. And when you look at his ability, yes, he's been a sub-package linebacker. It's mostly been on third down, and it's been in their 4-1-6 dime package where he's basically the only linebacker on the field for the Rams. But one thing that shows up, Bob, is he's got unbelievable athletic skills. And when he gets his hand on the football, he's taking it to the house. He's going the other way. He's 6'3". So for a linebacker, that means he's got super long arms. This could be the answer to how do we find a way to stop Miles Sanders out of the backfield when we go down the turnpike to beat the Birds, and how do we find a way to cover Zach Ertz in the red zone. This could be your guy.
All right, move us along. Your turn.
All right, Joe Schobert, the linebacker for the Cleveland Browns, who's basically done everything for them, and he's a free agent now. And then his teammate, also Christian Kirksey, is available. So I'll say this. It's very well marked in history that coming from the Cleveland Browns to the New York Giants has done wonders for your career. I know it firsthand. So Joe Schobert, listen, this guy, he's a tackling machine. I think the one thing, complete opposite of the guy that we just talked about in Cory Littleton. He's not a cover linebacker. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with speed and run with running backs. So he provides a lot of value. I think he's got great instinct. I see, we talked about David Mayo, one of the free agents that the Giants are trying to keep here. I see a lot of similarities with him. Great nose for the football, great instincts, and he's a really good tackler.
All right, let's move along here and talk about some secondary help. And obviously the Giants have some young corners, but they'd like to bring in somebody with some experience to work with those guys. The hot name is Byron Jones. Could his asking price be a little bit too high for the production?
It could be, especially when you look at interceptions. 2 interceptions in 5 years with the Dallas Cowboys. That kind of jumps out at you. Not 1 interception in the last 2 years, but he has had 20 passes defended. So he's knocking a lot of balls down, but he's not Deion Sanders by any means. He's not trying to take it to the house. Interesting that there's a pipeline coming from Dallas now with Mark Colombo, with Jason Garrett. Now they could try to woo Byron Jones because, as you mentioned, he is a physical corner. He's got great ability, and when you look at what he does out in space, he's a good tackler as well. So I think this could be a good pickup. I think for that young room, to have a guy like Byron Jones, who's a great guy in the locker room, a guy that would be willing to mentor some young guys, this could really help the Giants out.
What about, I want to go to one of your ties, Rutgers. What about a guy like Logan Ryan, who's been with Tennessee, won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots? There's a veteran guy, understands sort of the Patriot way, having been playing for Vrabel and playing for Bill Belichick, who could come at a lot less of a price point and bring you everything and then some what Byron Jones could give you.
Yeah, and I think Logan Ryan could move into the slot much better than Byron Jones would, so versatility with Logan would be huge. I still, my last memory of Logan Ryan from this past season was the pick 6 at the end, the exclamation point, to basically put the Patriots to bed in the playoffs. I think Logan Ryan would be a great asset. I think when you look at the scheme, when you look at the type of player that he is, I think Logan Ryan, the one thing that gets lost on him is he's an excellent blitzer. So if you want to bring him in to the Giants, now you're going to get a guy that can blitz off the slot, blitz off the edge, and he's great at finishing it. How many times do you see a guy get to the quarterback and not be able to take him down, not be able to sack him and tackle him? Logan Ryan does just that. So as we're talking about defensive backs, I think one guy that's out there too is Anthony Harris. And he's a safety for the Minnesota Vikings. I think he could be a huge pickup for the Giants. He's kind of flown under the radar because The Vikings defense has so many big name guys. Trey Waynes at corner, Xavier Rhodes at corner, and then when you look at Harrison Smith at safety, Anthony Harris has flown under the radar because last year was his first year really starting. He led the league in interceptions, tied for 6th. I think when you look at the way that he has intercepted a lot of passes last year, he's baiting quarterbacks. He's doing a great job of feeling the receiver where they're at and looking into the backfield and finding the quarterback. So a great ball skills that Anthony Harris has. I think he could be somebody that the Giants target.
All right. As we move forward, let's talk a little bit about some of the offensive linemen to be had.
Yeah, I love this guy right here. And the Giants really liked him a lot, too, when he was coming out in the draft. There was a lot of banter about them, hoping that they could draft him, and he ended up not being available for them. So Jack Conklin, he's been through a couple of injuries. He tore his ACL in a playoff game in January of 2018, missed a couple of games that year, but bounced back and had a phenomenal year last year. He was probably one of the best run-blocking tackles in the league last year. This would be a huge upgrade at the tackle position. And I think for Jack Conklin, he's got a different kind of kick slide. And when you watch him on film, he's not super athletic, but he gets the job done, and he's very powerful. So this could be a very good signing for the Giants. I think he would add a lot of grit to that offensive line to the right side. You put him with Kevin Zeitler. Those two guys would mix very well, and they would really help the run game.
You know, Jason Peters is another name that will be out there, the Philadelphia Eagles stud tackle. But, boy, his age, 17 years in the league, and the injury factor, it doesn't seem like that's what the Giants would be looking at.
Well, and for Jason Peters, too, would he want to move over to right tackle at the end of his career? That's a big change for him. And if you bring Jason Peters in, do you ask Nate Solder to move over to the right tackle? So there's a lot of, musical chairs if you bring in a guy like Jason Peters. But the one thing that the Giants would provide a guy like Jason Peters is a chance to play your old team. So maybe they weigh on that, and maybe Trent Williams for the Washington Redskins, who's looking for a trade, maybe he would be available as well.
Yeah, I don't think that you make a decision based on a little rivalry. Hey,
the interesting thing with this whole tackle thing, Bob, is there are so many good tackles in this draft. So if you don't get the guy that you want in free agency, if this is the guy and the Giants go after him and somebody outbids him, I'd be okay with the Giants saving some of that $61 million cap space and saying, hey, look, we're going to go all in on a young tackle.
One of the great signings of Ernie Accorsi's time with the Giants was Kareem McKenzie, who wound up playing out his entire contract. He won 2 Super Bowls. Could this be the akin of a Kareem McKenzie signing? Maybe not as sexy as a bigger name guy, but someone that could be a long-haul player?
Well, don't let the arm sleeve fool you here. This tattoo is sexy. I don't know that he's got Big Bear status. That's what we used to call Kareem. But Jack Conklin could absolutely be that pivotal point. When we signed Kareem McKenzie from the New York Jets, nobody knew about him, nobody as a player or a fan, and he ended up being a stalwart, and he was a cornerstone for our offensive line for years to come. That could be Jack Conklin.
And then let's go interior. Connor McGovern with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, obviously with John Jalapeno, back-to-back injuries. He broke his ankle 2 years ago, coming off an Achilles injury. The surgery went well, but his status is to be determined. I think for Connor McGovern, when you look at him, big physical guy, and I think that's really what Dave Gettleman likes. Joe Judge certainly is going to like the beef aspect of it. He's wearing a great number, I'll say that too, Bob. So this guy is one that you sign him and you don't have to worry about the mic calls. You don't have to worry about protection calls. He's a smart kid. I think he could be a huge asset to the Giants.
Hey Giants fans, Saquon Barkley here. You want to see more videos? Subscribe below.